talk Mariners. Let's talk about
Yes.
they bounced back nicely from what was just a disastrous road trip. The pitching was terrible on that road trip, and they came back, and all three starters, JP, gave up 1 run each. 1 run. And, I mean, Brian Wu continues a spectacular season, 7 innings, 2 hits, 1 run. You had Logan Gilbert with 13 strikeouts yesterday. George Kirby, he scuffled a bit, 3 walks, which is weird for him. He gives up 1 run. So that was great to see, and you beat an A's team, which is not record-wise a good team, but they are a team that is a problem. What was your takeaway?
They did what they had to do. And we spoke, Bob, a little before that series began, and we said very clearly, this is a series that you have to win. And they did. Now, they easily could have swept it, and at this time of year, you do want to get greedy and say, yeah, you probably should have won the Saturday game, and we could probably go back and forth on different decisions that were made.
Robles trying to bunt.
Right. The Robles bunt was not a great play. He stabbed at it late, and it didn't work, obviously.
Now, sorry to cut you off, but did you have a problem with them just bunting, period, in that situation, or just his mechanics of bunting there?
There were a couple things I didn't like. Number one, there was no Raleigh there, right? No Canzone. So there were options they could have gone with that never got a chance to get off the bench in that situation. So that's one thing. But secondarily, if the idea is to bunt, that's not a situation where you're bunting for a base hit. That's a situation where you square early. And again, the move on it was late. He stabbed at it late. I'm not a bunting coach, but we've all been around the game long enough to know when you're going to sacrifice, you sacrifice.
Yeah.
You square early, you get the bat head up, you make the right fundamental play, and you get the bunt down. The notion of a late movement like that, it's risky because of what happened, especially in the modern game. Now, granted, I can hear everybody saying, yeah, Morosi, you go up there and try to bunt that ball, and I get it. It's not easy. But what I do know is this. You got a lot better chance of bunting it the right way if you square early, you're giving yourself up as a sacrifice, and you get the bat head up and you drop it down. That's how it's supposed to be done. That's number one. So I didn't love the way that inning unfolded in general. I'm sure very few Mariner fans did.
Yeah.
But that, again, that was a game they could have won. It's hard to say should have won. I thought Ferguson didn't execute the breaking pitch there. It was the right pitch if you look at the metrics. He just left it up and he got burned. They lost the ball game. It's one that they could have won. Hard to say should have won, but certainly could have won. But in general, I thought overall we saw very good signs. And yesterday, Cal had the kind of day that is going to, if he wins the MVP, that's going to be on the highlight reel, right? He takes over sole possession of the record. And in a game the Mariners really needed to win ahead of a tough series, you had to win that game. And Cal Raleigh made darn sure that they did. So I think overall a lot to like for the Mariners. And I think we're going to know more. You know, that felt like they parred the hole last weekend. That's what you're supposed to do against the A's. Now, if they're able to win a series against the Padres, if they can win this series, I'll say, okay, now they're really back into it. They've got another lefty on the mound tonight. They have struggled in recent weeks against lefties. They were able to get the win against one yesterday. But let's see. A third straight lefty. Robles is back in there. This really feels like, guys, a show-me series here right before Labor Day.
John, what do you make of Robles being back? It seems like a very murky situation. No one seems to know exactly when and how this ruling will come down. I learned about the term abeyance over the weekend, which means I guess his ruling is in a state of suspension or they haven't heard it yet. But until then, what do you think about this move with those 3 lefties? And then do you have any insight about what and when something might happen with his ruling?
Yeah, Mike, it's a great question. And so what I'll say is this, and this is not any sort of inside knowledge about what the Mariners' plans are imminently to do with this, but it seemed pretty clear to me, based on the move they made with Moore, when they activated him, the fact that they had 3 lefties in a row and they knew they wanted Robles' bat in the lineup. They clearly felt as though he was their best option, right, for this particular situation. So maybe at this moment in time, what some teams do, and I'm not saying they're definitely going to do this, but what some teams might do is you activate the player when you know you need him, when you're facing this series of lefties, and then you might announce tomorrow, we're dropping the appeal, he's going to serve the 10 games. That could happen. And that is, again, there's the calculation there about what are your chances of actually it getting reduced. How long might it take to hear the situation? Again, they're probably going to hear it at some point in time in the next week or so, but every now and then you'll see a rather clever working of a team to say we really want the righty bat in there to face the three lefties right now, and then as soon as we get ready and finish with this stretch, we'll drop the appeal, accept the suspension. He serves the 10 games.
Do you think there's a reduction there? Since we don't really have precedent for this, so I've never seen it. We talked about it before. I don't. What do you think? That 2 games maybe they knock it down to 8, or do you see them going? No, you don't throw a bat. You're serving all 10.
I tend to think you're going to have to serve all 10. Again, it's because it's so unique, right? It's such a rare situation. You might go back, and it's interesting. There was the situation years ago, not at all the same thing. But when Manny Machado kind of flung the bat towards Donaldson, not the same thing, but that was somewhat recent. I just think that there are so few other recent cases, and you definitely want this to be a strong deterrent. And it's very difficult. It's just difficult to say, yeah, we're going to cut him some slack for throwing a bat at a pitcher. I mean, that is objectively one of the most dangerous things that can ever happen on a baseball field. And I just think that the optics of reducing the suspension, I don't think it's a terribly strong case. I think, honestly, if we're just being honest, I think he's fortunate that he only got 10, to be quite candid with you. So I think that the Mariners probably realized they really wanted the righty bat in there for these 3 games, and then maybe the prudent thing is to just accept it, move on, and figure out the roster from there.
John, everyone, a buzz this morning here because you look at Fangraphs WAR, and Cal Raleigh is now tied with Aaron Judge, so both of them sitting there, 7.3 on Fangraphs in WAR. He has that home run record now for catchers. I know you have said at times, hey, it might be more of what the Mariners do to help Cal Raleigh's case as MVP compared to what the Yankees do and vice versa. But at this point, what do you think Cal Raleigh still needs to do in order to win the MVP?
He needs to keep doing what he's doing. I think if he then gets into the 50s in home runs and the Mariners make the playoffs, it's a pretty compelling case. If I had a ballot in front of me right now, I would vote for Cal Raleigh. He's the reason why they're in a playoff position. He catches all those innings. It's a hard staff to catch. I was talking actually about this with Logan Gilbert in Williamsport about how great Cal is and what a challenging staff it is. And Logan made the point, a lot of splitters, which you don't often see. So, there's all those inside baseball arguments that voters like me care about, and I've been a voter in this. I'm not this year, but I have been in the past. I just think that his case is getting better. Meanwhile, remember, the key thing that's happening with Judge is he's been a DH now for a considerable amount of time. And that is part of his value. A big part of the reason why when Judge was competing with Ohtani years ago, I said, listen, yeah, Ohtani pitches, but Judge plays center field. And he's hitting 62 homers while playing center field. When you're playing an up-the-middle defensive position, it is just simply one of the most valuable things you can do for your team. And also the number of times that Cal is in the lineup, even if he's the DH. His durability, the reliability, the production, this is what an MVP season looks like. And even yesterday was a moment within that. His team really needed a big game, and he delivered. So I think whatever wearing down might be going on, and I certainly think that's part of it. And his average isn't going to be – he's not going to have a Tony Gwynn batting average right now. It's not going to happen. But my point is he shouldn't have to because he's catching all the time. And he's hitting dang near 50 home runs at the moment. So I just think it's such a special year, and everything he's doing for the Mariners stands out in such a profound way. And again, right now, at least on a daily basis, Judge's defensive war, if you want to call it that, is not getting any bigger. Right?
Yeah.
So he's flatlining with respect to his defensive value, while Cal's defensive value is one of the most important things you could do on a baseball field.
How does the voting work? You said you were a voter before. You're not this year. Does it rotate? And then how many voters are there? And then I guess third part, I shouldn't be asking three questions in one. Do you buy into the East Coast bias? That seems to be the rallying cry out here. East Coast bias. They're going to vote for the Yankee. They're going to vote for the guy that, is doing all the commercials and Cal's tucked up here in the corner of the U.S. Do you buy into any of that?
Don't buy the East Coast bias. If there was an East Coast bias, then Felix wouldn't have won the Cy Young 15 years ago, right? I mean, that's I think that's all history. And I will say this. Get ready, everybody. I'm going to surprise you. This is part of the good side of social media, right? It's not always a good side, but what I'll say is this. Our votes are public, okay? Mm-hmm. So the Hall of Fame votes are not always public, but the annual votes are. And so everyone knows who voted for whom. That is public the day that it comes out. And so because of social media, which again has its flaws, clearly,
a few.
But when the vote comes out, if I voted for player X or Y or Z, I've got to answer for it. And this might shock everyone. Your Twitter mentions are actually not limited to your own local region, right? So you will hear from everyone, which is, again, I think in this case, a good thing. There was the funniest. I think I told you this story, but it's applicable here. I voted years ago for David Price over Verlander in the Cy Young vote and literally cost Verlander the Cy Young with that vote. This is something that David Price knew, and you better believe this is something Justin Verlander knew. And my grandpa at the time, God rest his soul, I said, Grandpa, I called him that night. I said, Grandpa, I think I cost Verlander the Cy Young. He said, well, son, did you believe in your vote? I said, well, hell yeah. I looked at this thing, 95 different ways, backwards and forwards, and David Price won the ERA title. He pitched in the American League East against all those good and tough teams. He had to face the Red Sox and the Yankees. Yeah, I feel really good about it. It's exactly what I should have done. He said, well, it's okay, son. It's a secret ballot anyway. I said, well, no, it's not. Everybody knows, man. I'm in trouble. I said, I think I might get uninvited to Thanksgiving. But I said, he said, well, you voted your conscience. I was like, well, thank you, Grandpa. I appreciate that. So in other words, so that's one little funny story about how it does weigh on you, and you really do think about it. I don't think the East Coast bias is a thing anymore. It does cycle through the chapter chairperson. In our case, it's the great Tom Gage, Hall of Famer from the Detroit News for many years. Tom will send out an email and say, hey, John, this year, how about you do manager and rookie of the year, which is what I'm doing this year, actually. And so I'll start studying that. I've said this before. I really think you shouldn't study too hard on that until like the middle of September if you're voting on it, because I don't want to be too skewed by what happened in the first 5.5 months. And this is a perfect example of why with Raleigh. Like if you thought for a long time it was Judge, and then all of a sudden Judge doesn't play defense anymore. It's not Aaron's fault, but the value keeps accumulating on Raleigh's side. Don't get yourself too boxed into a particular way of thinking. Allow yourself to have your mind convinced. So in this case, I'm not doing the MVP. The chapter chair decides it. There are 30 voters in all. So 15 American League cities, 2 voters per, and it's a great privilege. I like to, especially for the big ones, Cy Young and MVP. And by the way, I had the thought that Brian Woo's he'll get some Cy Young votes. I believe he's not going to maybe get 1 or 2 first place, second place. I think that's going to be a lot of Scooble and Crochet, but he's top 5. I think for me in a lot of different ways. Yeah. I just kind of wanted to throw that out there, but I enjoy the vote. It's a lot of fun. It's a challenge to do, a lot of research, a lot of talking to people, and that work for me will really get started here in the next couple weeks.
JP, I can't believe you voted for Y over Z. Everyone knows player
right.
Z.
I mean, it's 100%. It's believe me, there were some tough ballots that I had to cast. I remember one time I voted for Elvis Andrus. I voted for Elvis Andrus over Rick Porcello for the Rookie of the Year in 2009. And I think Andrew Bailey won it. And, again, I voted against the Detroit guy, and I felt like at some point in time they're going to stop giving me the ballot if they're afraid that I'm not going to automatically vote for the Tigers. But, again, that's the way you used to think about things 20 years ago. Hey, like, throw your hometown guy a vote. Yeah. But you don't do that anymore. It's a different world, and I think it's better in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I remember when you voted for Manager of the Year.
Last of the best. Last of the best.
Yeah.
Yeah, we still did bring that up. John, we've seen Emerson Hancock now, 2 relief outings. Yesterday, he hit 99 in a relief appearance. We've talked about this bullpen. Do you think for the Mariners, this is kind of still the most unsettled part of the team, and what impact could, assuming Emerson Hancock does come up in that bullpen role, have on this team?
Yeah, I agree. I do think it's the part that's unsettled now, and I think if you've got a chance to bring in that power arm, you do it. And too, he's going to be able to, ideally because of his training as a starter, give you multiple innings. He should be able to. And this is where you think about the way the Tigers utilized Jackson Jobe last year down the stretch and in the playoffs. I'd like to see him in that bridge role where probably Dan Wilson will know ahead of time, okay, this is a day when you're likely to get in the game, maybe give him a little more time to get ready and say, here's a day where you're likely to go. Maybe you like the matchup, a particular lane of the other team's lineup. But I think he can clearly help. And you're going to see in this series against the Padres why they're so dangerous and why their bullpen is so great is that basically Mike Schilt can go alternating days where one day he's got Jason Adam and Suarez, and the next day he's got Mason Miller to close with Estrada before him. David Morgan's really good and really underrated. So he can almost toggle his guys so that way somebody's always fresh. And almost no one can do that. The Dodgers, when they're all fully healthy, can probably do that, but really no one else can. And so the Mariners are going to see up close what an absolute procession of just dominance the Padres have. And that's the standard right now. That's the team that you're probably going to have to at some point in time, and we'll see if anybody in the National League can get through them and actually knock them out. But the Mariners don't have that, is what I'm saying. And anybody that gets you a little closer to having that, and if Hancock, because of his ability to go multiple innings, if he saves you from having to use a Matt Brash on a Monday, and then Brash is available for a significant portion of Tuesday, that's a huge value. And I think I think he can handle the pressure of the playoffs. I believe he can. But that, to me, is going to be the huge question for the Mariners is, can you get multiple innings? And then does that buy you additional rest for your other guys? Because the postseason becomes a contest of how many games can you win while using as few pitchers as you possibly can, because it becomes that relay race that you're focused on for the long haul. It's the sprint. It's the marathon all at once. That's why the playoffs are so much fun.
JP, always fantastic stuff. We appreciate you, my friend. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk next week.
Sounds great, guys. Looking forward to it again. The series of all of baseball, as far as I'm concerned right now, is happening in Seattle. So enjoy. This is going to be a fun team. A lot of superstars on both sides.
Love it. Love it. Appreciate you, John.
Thank you.
Thanks, JP.
so much, guys.
There you go. There's Jon Morosi with us each and every week. If